recycle and dismantle offshore rigs. So the answer is not as simple as you might think because of the huge amount of oil rigs that are nearing the end of the production lives at the moment. So this graph gives you an idea of their location. And it's estimated that between 2018 and 2022, recycling or dismantling oil rigs will cost taxpayers 24 billion. So you'd be paying that with your own money, or at least from your taxes. This gives you a sense of scales of some of the oil rigs that exist. So this is one of the bigger ones, and it's about 300 meters. And so dismantling this type of structure is not simple at all. There are several ways to dismantle a rig, but as I said, they're expensive, costly, and they take a lot of time. Again, this is the number of oil rigs that are in the Gulf of Mexico. So in red are the ones still in service, and in gray are the ones that have been removed. So there's still a huge number left over right now. But this doesn't really give you the exact numbers because there's actually a lack of transparency surrounding the actual numbers following the region where the oil rig is installed, because some regions have regulations in places, some don't. So the problem is that you don't know how many there are in the sea at the moment, and you don't know how well they are or how near they are to the end of their production lives. Okay, so you might think that dismantling is the easiest solution, but if you do it locally, as you can see, this is like a ship scrapyard in Bangladesh. Well, the human conditions are somewhat appalling. So the problem is that it's dangerous for the local businesses, and you're not going to export it. You're not going to transport it all the way to Europe because it's locally sourced. So I mean, I'll show you an example. The voyage can be very dangerous. Like this one was transported, did a 1,000-mile trip to a Scottish island, and it crashed on shore, as you can see. So it wasn't a huge environmental disaster for this one because the fuel tanks didn't burst, but it could have been. And as it stands, it's not an isolated incident as other oil rigs have already crashed on shore. So yeah, one idea, instead of trying to dismantle the rig, or there are other solutions as well, which is like exploding the oil rig itself, which is somewhat dangerous, or like sinking it to the seabed again, which is a solution, but maybe not ideal one. Another solution is maybe convert the rig to a reef, because fish colonies tend to install themselves on oil rigs because of the complex structure, so they actually like living there. And so one idea is just simply removing the top 85 feet of the platform and leaving the rest. Which, I mean, it sounds like a nice idea, but the problem is that there's also long-term pollution that you have to take into account. I mean, you all remember the Horizon oil spill, right? Well, actually, leaving an oil rig by itself can cause a more impactful pollution because of the chemicals emanating from the materials. Okay, so these are the debate positions. So I'm guessing you saw the list, so you kind of know who you were doing for. So maybe the people who are against can go here, and the people who are for can move over here. Okay, so I guess one of you can start and explain his position, I guess. So yeah, go ahead. I mean,
I will catch about okay in journal. Okay, a first question. Okay, I you said that you believe the cost of dismantling leads are too high. You want to prefer thinking for structure, but it will destroy the nature and ocean because you make a profit from the oil leak. You should have responsibility to clean ocean. In my opinion, cost of
Dismantling,
cost of
dismantling,
destroying
destroying.
because of my company mistake that it can it is my step to yeah to serious step. This but if there the cost of destroy disaster like that, there's no my there's no my responsibility to handle that.
So you think that the government
Yes.
should be the one to intervene? Okay. Okay.
We don't have money.
Okay, party four. What's your answer or anything to say? I guess.
I think we should make the effort to dismantle the plants because yeah, just a way to kill the seed to leave the protein. I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
Should we always
Be for that position? No, you can just you can arrive to like a conclusion. The idea is just
not that should we always send the rigs to the land perspective?
yeah. I mean, the problem is that the I mean, you could use individual ships, but you'd have to use huge amounts. So the simplest way is to take the whole structure and bring it to shore, right? And depending on where you want to bring it, you have a long trip to do. So the in this case, the problem is that the idea is that locally it's a bit dangerous for the people who live there. So the idea is to bring it to a safe place where there are regulations in place. But the problem with that is that there's a long journey. So during that journey, anything can happen and actually cause more destruction or more pollution than where it was originally. So set against, I guess. Yeah. So Farhad, anything you want to say? Cause
I'm a little confused with the against people.
yeah,
Because,
why?
for example,
Sorry.
for example, human rights activists are usually liberal people. Liberal people usually are against pollution.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not here like to make people. I'm just here to put positions, right? I don't really care if they're liberal or anything. Sorry. So I mean, yes, of course, it could go both ways, right? I mean, I know it can go both ways, but I mean, it's just to create a debate. So, do you have anything to answer to what she said?
I think it is possible, like, it is possible to recycle and dismantle without causing danger to human life. Why is it like one is against the other? I don't think one should go against the other. For example, the example was Bangladesh, but that doesn't mean that it's everywhere the conditions are like that.
No, 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 of course not. It's just I guess it's dependent on the area of where it's located, right? But you still have to consider the fact that in some areas it's going to be somewhat decadent, right? So that's the idea, anyways.
What do we gain to recycle? Is it possible to recycle?
It is possible to recycle the material, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you recycle them, actually about 90% could be recycled technically, but it's on a case to case basis. So yeah, when you recycle, there is a possibility of recycling the material. It's all dependent on the case to case basis. If it's like a platform that lasts like around 40 years, the material is just going to be too old. But if it's like a platform that lasts like 10 to 20 years old, the material could easily be reused. So yeah. But there's still like a high cost involved.
You can recycle steel.
No, you could recycle steel. You could recycle any form of equipment that's still like valid. So it's not just steel, but it's mostly steel, yes, because the whole structure is steel. Yeah. Okay. So I guess I'm doing the debate, and you guys are just asking questions. Okay. Anyone else?
Maybe we can reach an agreement that we have to check if the floor is deposit some non-degrading material like steel or I don't know. And we can just clean the platform and take that can be taken. But we have to be careful not to damage.
Okay.
What do you think about this?
So to give you an idea of cost, um, if you recycle or if you reef, you can save up to like 50% or 60% of the costs. The only thing you have to take into account as well is that companies have to pay 60% of the benefits they get from scrapping off 50% from off the cost to to the wildlife, to environmental. There are regulations that force them to give away their profit, any profits they make.
So, but they can make profit from.
I mean, you can't make profits, but you can reduce the price if you if you're careful. Like if you reef them, or if you or if you recycle the material, you can like make a 50% cost reduction. But that 50% cost reduction will almost just entirely go back to like the government because your basically your regulations put in place that say that you have to give back profits to the wildlife. Okay, Puya, anything to say?
Not really.
So you think that reefs should just be completely dismantled and just completely removed?
But that's not my actual opinion, as it has been assigned to me.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I don't know what your opinion, and I'm not. Yeah, I guess you can have your own opinion. What's your own opinion then? Sure.
I don't see why not. I don't like. I would rather be on the poor side, not the against side.
Okay.
Because I don't see any downside of it.
You don't think there's any downsides?
Except the cost, obviously. But if you put that aside, I don't see any downside of it.
Yeah. Oh, there are still some risks when it comes to like human conditions, like I said.
Yeah, but you mentioned that, and
yeah.
That's not the position that I'm supposed to argue for, right?
Yeah, I know. Okay, fine. All right. Then I guess end of debate. Then, just to give you an idea. So there is a treaty for like the Northeast Atlantic, under which that it demands that offshore structures be completely removed. So just no reefing actually. It's just complete removal, and you have to bring them back to shore for reuse, recycling, or disposal. The problem is that there isn't like any other treaties in like other areas, and in a lot of the oil rigs, companies are unsure what to do because they haven't been treated for decommissioning. So the idea is that they didn't never considered decommissioning them in the first place when they constructed them. So the problem is that the environmental cost is like is becoming huge for those kind of rigs because they're never really like made for long-term plans. So I guess the idea is just putting regulations in place that can allow allow an easier recycling of oil rigs. And anyways, like I said, it's a case-to-case basis. Some oil rigs can't be removed at all. Like the structures are too gigantic to actually be like dismantled. So yeah, I mean, it's every oil rig is different. So I think it should be treated for on a case-to-case basis. Okay. End of debate.
When so things are changing. I have a car for 10 years ago when I checked my